Welcome to my channel. She was just a forgotten mechanic, until the night the sirens wailed and the sky burned red. When Bravo Squadron was outnumbered and left for dead, one ghost from the past roared back into the fight. This isn't just a comeback, it's the legend of Shadehawk, the ace who refused to stay grounded. Darkness had just started swallowing the sky when the sirens blared across Granite Ridge Air Base. Red lights flared along the perimeter. I was in the back hangar, wiping the grease from my fingers and making a mental checklist of hydraulic seals. That was my life: checklists, maintenance, silence. I was the invisible girl with a wrench. Then came the voice over the loudspeaker. Code red. Incoming hostile intercept. All pilots report to ready status. Bravo Squadron under fire. My breath caught. Bravo. My squadron. Well, not mine anymore. My name is Talia Marin. Age 34. 5'3". Hair in a bun. Name patch that reads Support Tech, Non-Flight. And for the last 12 years, that's all I've been. The woman in coveralls tightening bolts on wings she would never fly again. The woman no one remembered. Talia, did you hear that? Mikey, one of the younger techs, rushed in, eyes wide. Bravo's under attack. 6 Furies got jumped by rogue K-29S off the coast. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I already knew. My gut always felt it first. And something was very wrong. The command center was chaos. I slipped in unnoticed, weaving past officers and radar screens until I reached the back wall. From there, I watched 5 green dots surrounded by flashing red. 5 pilots. Outnumbered. Outgunned. And boxed in by something they hadn't seen coming. Lieutenant Cara Monroe's voice crackled through the comms. We're painted. They knew we were coming. Shields dropping. We've got no exit. Another voice, one I hadn't heard before. Young. Desperate. Is anyone up there? We need help. We need someone. We need you. That was it. That was the phrase that shattered me. Because 12 years ago, I heard those same words. We need you. Right before I flew into a dogfight that changed everything. The one I never came back from. Not really. I turned and ran. Not toward the exit. Toward my quarters. I hadn't opened the back locker in years. Not since the tribunal. Not since the court-martial that never stuck but still erased me from flight rosters. I had chosen silence. Maintenance. Anonymity. But that locker still held the relics. My flight suit was folded like it had been waiting. My helmet, matte black with a barely visible hawk etched on the side, still fit when I pulled it on. I used to be Captain Talia Shadehawk Marin, the Navy's youngest ace, with 14 confirmed takedowns and a reputation for appearing from nowhere and vanishing just as fast. But no one here knew that. They only saw the mechanic with grease under her nails. I sprinted across the tarmac toward Hangar C. Inside, 1 Fury jet sat fueled and armed, the emergency bird. Always ready. Always untouched. Hey, a sergeant barked as I climbed the ladder. What the hell are you doing? Step aside, I said, not yelling, just commanding. You're not cleared. I said move. He moved. The cockpit felt like home. The startup sequence blinked green. I slid the throttle, felt the engines come alive, and whispered into the mic, Shadehawk airborne. The hangar crew froze. The control tower lost its collective mind. I heard a dozen voices shouting over each other. Who authorized that launch? What unit is she with? Someone get her down. But I was already in the sky. And just like that, Granite Ridge wasn't looking at a mechanic anymore. They were watching a ghost return to the sky. The sky opened wide as I tore through the cloud layer, afterburners lighting the night like twin comets. Below me, Granite Ridge Air Base shrank to a scatter of lights. Ahead, on the outer edge of controlled airspace, 5 green blips danced desperately in a sea of red. I'd flown this sector before, years ago, back when my call sign wasn't a secret. When Shadehawk was still spoken with respect instead of erased with silence. The chatter in my headset was pure chaos. Cara Monroe's voice cracked in and out, but I caught enough. Falcon 3 is gone. Mayday, mayday. We're dropping fast. Brace for ejection. Then silence. 1 green dot blinked out. I felt that loss like a stab. Falcon lead to base. Any support? Please, we can't hold much longer. There was no answer from command. They had nothing left to send. No pilots, no backup. Just radar operators whispering prayers into open channels. I cut in, Voice steady. Falcon lead. This is Shadehawk. I've got 6 bandits visual. Recommend you spiral out. Defensive pattern. I'll engage. There was a pause. Then Monroe came back, skeptical and strained. Shadehawk? That isn't possible. Stay alive, Monroe. I'll introduce myself later. The bandits were K-29s, modified strike fighters, fast and brutal, flown by mercs who didn't play by any nation's rules. They moved with coordination, boxing in the Furies with textbook tactics. But they'd made one mistake. They didn't know who I was. I dropped low, hugging the terrain. A trick I'd used a dozen times before in combat theaters. Most pilots never flew near. The first K-29 didn't even see me coming. I released a short-range air-to-air missile, timed to impact just as he banked. Splash 1, I said coldly. The formation scattered. I saw them breaking pattern, unsure where the hit came from. The second made the mistake of pursuing Falcon 4 too tightly. I flipped inverted, rolled under his tail, and fired off a clean shot at 8 GS. Splash 2. Who is that? A pilot muttered over the comms. You seeing this? Another asked. She's not flying, she's hunting. The K-29s turned defensive, but I was already in motion. Every maneuver, every angle, I had lived this dance. Not in simulations. In real dogfights, in skies where one hesitation meant death. I caught a third bandit climbing, trying to pull a loop and reset position. I took the shot blind through cloud cover, using pure instinct and years of calibration. Splash 3. The last 2 bolted for open airspace. I chased, but I didn't fire. Not this time. I let them run. Falcon lead's voice came in low, breathless. All units check in. One by one, they replied. For voices. All alive. Falcon 3's pilot had ejected and was already being tracked by SAR. No fatalities. Control, I radioed. Area is clear. Hostiles neutralized or retreated. Silence. Then, over the comms, Shadehawk returned to base. I didn't answer right away. The wind against the canopy felt like an old friend. Talia, a voice broke in. Captain Monroe, calmer now. That was you, wasn't it? A long pause. That person's gone, I said quietly. Just someone in the right place at the right time. I circled back toward Granite Ridge, trailing behind the survivors. The adrenaline faded slowly, leaving a cold hollow where shame had once lived. 12 years of silence. 12 years of punishment for one mission that went wrong. One call I made that cost lives. And tonight, I'd made a different call. The same woman. A different ending. As the runway lights emerged below, I steadied my hands on the throttle. No fanfare. No celebration. Just landing gear lowering like it had 1,000 times before. But something was different. This time, the entire base was waiting. The Fury touched down smooth, muscle memory, not thought. I coasted to a stop as a silent crowd gathered near the hangar. Not just pilots and techs. Everyone. Ops staff. Fuel crews. Even the base mess sergeant stood there, apron still dusted with flour. I cut the engine. Lifted the canopy. No one moved. I unstrapped my harness, stood slowly, and pulled off my helmet. My hair tumbled down, loose from its bun, damp with sweat. I scanned the faces below. Most of them looked at me like they were seeing a ghost. Then I saw Chief Merrick. He stood beside the bird like a statue, eyes wide, disbelief carved into every line of his face. He was the senior maintenance chief. He'd trained me back when I was a flight officer, when I wore stripes and earned respect. Talia, he said, like he didn't believe it. I climbed down the ladder and handed him my helmet. He took it like it was sacred. What you saw tonight, I said quietly, was 5 pilots who needed help. I was there. I answered. Colonel Reyes, the base commander, stepped forward. His posture was rigid, voice clipped. We pulled your record. You were discharged after Marlin Gulf. No flight clearance. No status. That's correct, I said, eyes steady. You stole a jet. I saved your squadron. Murmurs rippled through the onlookers. Captain Cara Monroe stepped out of the group, still in her flight suit. She looked different now. Not shaken, curious, respectful. You flew like someone who's done it 100 times, she said. What are you? I hesitated. Then, used to be a captain. Used to be Shadehawk. Then a mission went bad. My wingman didn't come home. I walked away. Silence. Even the wind paused. Monroe nodded once. Well, Shadehawk, tonight you saved lives. I don't know who decided you didn't belong, but they were wrong. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. Chief Merrick's voice cracked slightly as he stared at my helmet. 12 years of wiping wings and patching wires. Why now? Because they said, we need you. That was all. That was everything. I started walking back toward the hangar, past stunned faces and whispered questions. Some of them looked ashamed, others awestruck, but none looked through me anymore. Just before I disappeared inside, I heard Monroe call out, "You coming back to the sky?" I paused, glanced over my shoulder. No, the sky doesn't need me anymore. Then I was gone, back to the shadows where I'd stayed hidden for over a decade. But this time, not forgotten. By morning, the entire base was buzzing. They tried to keep it quiet. Reyes ordered the tower logs sealed, the comms scrubbed. But there's no way to hide a story when every hangar, every bunk, every break room was still humming with the same question. Did you see what she did? People started treating me differently. The same junior airmen who once bumped past me without so much as a glance were now pausing to greet me, nodding with a mix of fear and admiration they didn't know how to hide. They didn't ask outright, not at first, but their eyes held questions. Was it really you? Are you the ghost? Do you still fly? I didn't answer. I just went back to my station. Same coveralls, same checklist, same tools, but nothing felt the same. I was polishing a wing strut on Falcon 2 when Monroe approached me again. She crouched beside the fuselage, like she'd done it 100 times before, arms crossed. You really think you're done flying? She asked. I'm not a pilot anymore. I replied, not looking up. I'm a mechanic. Monroe snorted. Yeah, sure. And I'm a bird watcher. I tightened a bolt. You saved 4 of us, you know, she continued. Viper went down. Yeah, but he ejected clean. We're all breathing because of you. I said nothing. You moved like you'd never stopped. Like the jet was part of you. It was, I admitted. Once. She leaned back on her heels. So why'd you walk away? Why disappear? I didn't answer at first. Just stared at the gleaming surface of the wing, my own reflection distorted in the metal. I made a bad call, I said finally. Back in Marlin Gulf. Thought I saw a friendly signal. Turned out to be bait. Led the squad right into a kill zone. 3 died. I lived. So I grounded myself. Monroe frowned. But that wasn't on you. Combat is chaos. Bad things happen. Not to pilots like me, I said quietly. I was supposed to be better. That was the myth. The unstoppable Shadehawk. But I wasn't good enough to stop that. You were good enough to stop this, she replied, gesturing toward the open sky. And I don't think it was luck. I wiped my hands and stood. It wasn't luck. It was instinct. Reflex. The kind of thing that doesn't go away, no matter how long you bury it. So don't bury it. I already did. Her tone softened. You may have hidden it, but the sky didn't forget. That hit harder than I expected. I looked out past the runway, where the morning haze still shimmered on the horizon. And for a moment, I felt it again. The pull of flight, the echo of engines, the weight of wings folded, waiting. 3 days passed. I stayed where I belonged on the ground. Bolts, hoses, inspections. I kept to myself, even more than before. If anything, I worked harder, partly to stay unnoticed. Mostly because I didn't know what else to do. But the whispers wouldn't stop. People stopped calling me Wrench Girl. No more muttered jokes about aviator cosplay. Even Colonel Reyes gave me a nod when we passed in the corridor, a small, sharp gesture loaded with questions. And still, I gave no answers. Then one morning, Chief Merrick handed me something wrapped in cloth. It was my old helmet. Cleaned, polished, repaired. The hawk on the side had been retouched, barely, but enough that it gleamed in the light. I figured you should have this, he said, for whatever comes next. I took it without a word. He hesitated, then added, I saw the logs from Marlin. Read the flight data. You didn't fail them, Talia. Intel failed you. You flew blind, and you still got most of them home. It doesn't matter. It should. I turned away. That afternoon, someone painted a mural on the wall behind Base 6. Just a silhouette of a hawk with its wings folded, perched atop an aircraft tail. Underneath it, 3 words in white. Respect the grounded. They didn't sign it. Didn't need to. Every crew member knew exactly who it was for. And every time I walked by, I pretended not to notice. But Merrick saw me pause, just for a second, every time. Later that week, Monroe caught me on the tarmac again. I heard Command wants to reinstate you, she said. I declined. She stared at me like I'd just admitted to burning down the base. You what? I said no. She paced in a small, frustrated circle. You're a legend. People need you. No, Monroe. They needed me that night. Not forever. Not again. So you're just going to vanish again? Like it never happened? I don't need wings to serve, I said. I keep the jets alive. I keep you alive. That's enough. She didn't argue after that. Didn't agree either. Just walked away. But later, someone quietly added to the mural. Now beneath the hawk were 4 call signs. Falcon 1. Falcon 2. Falcon 4. Falcon 5. The survivors. People were starting to remember, even if I didn't want them to. 2 weeks after the intercept, I got called into the command office. Rare. Unusual. The kind of summons that makes everyone look up from their coffee. Colonel Reyes stood behind his desk, hands on a file thick enough to choke a shredder. His look was unreadable. Captain Marin, he said, using a rank I hadn't worn in over a decade. Please sit. I didn't. I've had visitors, he said. Pentagon brass. Joint Command. Even some folks who don't like to show up on manifests. I waited. They all had one question. Who's the ghost pilot who saved Bravo Squadron? I stared past him at the wall map. They have their answer. He nodded. They also had a proposition. Full reinstatement. Promotion. Special assignment. Pick of squadrons. You could be back in the sky in 24 hours. I shook my head. I'm not going back. Why? You already know. Reyes sighed and stepped out from behind the desk. Talia, we've both worn this uniform long enough to know what guilt does to a person. But what I saw on those flight logs, what you did, it wasn't guilt. That was instinct. Skill. Command presence. I made one right call, I said. Doesn't undo the wrong ones. Wrong decisions are made in every war. My decisions cost lives. And this one saved them. You can't just weigh one side of the scale. I'm not interested in balance, I said. I'm interested in peace. He studied me for a long moment. Then, quietly, you've earned it. But understand something. Your silence won't stay silent. That story's out now. You may not want the sky, but the sky remembers you. He handed me the file. I didn't open it. As I left, I passed Monroe in the corridor. She must have known where I'd been. She didn't ask. She just fell and stepped beside me. You okay? She asked after a while. Not really, I said, but I'm used to it. I heard Vega's requesting you for tactical debriefs. Wants your input on threat movement patterns. He has instructors. None like you. I stopped, turned to face her. Monroe, I'm not some savior. I'm not a legend. I'm just a broken pilot with a wrench. She smiled. And still better than half the active roster. That night, I sat on my bunk, helmet on the desk beside me. I didn't put it away. Didn't hide it in the closet like I used to. Just let it sit there. Watching me. Waiting. The requests started coming in slowly. First, a junior pilot asking if I could double-check his diagnostics. Then another wanting my take on maneuvering sequences from their last sim run. Then came the unofficial invitations. You free during training drills? Would you mind sitting in on our threat response debrief? I said yes. Quietly. Reluctantly. Always from the back of the room. I never stood behind a podium. Never wore a flight suit. But the instructors stopped correcting me when I spoke. And when I drew diagrams on the maintenance boards in grease pencil, no one erased them. One afternoon, Lieutenant Aaron Vega, still green, still nervous, found me under a fury with a torque wrench. I was reviewing the battle footage, he said. Which one? The intercept. You know, the one. I didn't answer. You pulled an inverted twist with a negative G slide into a direct lock-on. I ran the numbers. That move shouldn't be survivable. How did you do it? I looked at him for a long moment, then said, sometimes survival isn't about what the machine can do. It's about what you trust it to do. He blinked. So you just believed? I knew the air. I knew the plane. And I knew I didn't have time to second guess. Vega scratched his head. Think you could teach me that? No, I said. Then I saw his face fall. But I can show you how to figure it out yourself. From that day on, he shadowed me during inspections. Asked questions that went beyond mechanics, about angles, instincts, evasions. I taught him through the language I still understood, tools, airflow, stress points. It spread. Soon, the younger pilots started calling the back corner of Hangar 3 the wing shop. Not official, not posted, but everyone knew where to go when training left them rattled or they needed to talk through a mission that didn't go right. I didn't offer sympathy. I offered precision. One day, Monroe dropped by after a long sortie. She leaned against a crate and asked, "You realize they've started calling you Hawk Mother, right?" I rolled my eyes. "Fantastic. I'm a bedtime story now." She grinned. "No, you're a warning. The one they tell rookies about when they think about showing off." "I prefer being ignored, thanks." "Tough. That ship has flown." She left behind a thermos of hot coffee and a single folded note. It read, "Even grounded, you lead." I didn't reply, but I didn't throw it away, either. 3 months after the intercept, Granite Ridge hosted a joint training exercise. 10 squadrons, multiple nations. Pressure was high. Eyes from DC, Berlin, Tokyo, all watching. I kept to the edges as usual, making sure everything ran smoothly behind the curtain. Until a communications blackout hit mid-sim. All training ops went quiet. One by one, live alerts popped across the central command screens. An unscheduled rogue insertion, stealth fighters off the grid, cut right through the simulated exercise like a knife. Not part of the drill. Not friendly. Real. For 10 seconds, the room was dead still. Then the scramble order went out. Pilots ran. Jets roared. Command barked orders over every channel. And despite all the chaos, all the confusion, one phrase cracked through like lightning. "Do we have Shadehawk on station?" It came from a foreign voice, Commander Renko, from the Czech Air Force. He hadn't even seen my face before, but he knew the story. Reyes looked across the command deck, straight at me. "Marin." I shook my head. "They've got it. Vega, Monroe, the rest, they're ready." He stepped closer, lowered his voice. "You sure? I trained them." He gave a tight nod and turned back to the screen. "Then let's see what they learned." The intercept lasted 17 minutes. For K-29s, flying dark, probably testing airspace limits. One got a lock, then lost it. The other 3 turned tail before they got anywhere near the perimeter. Falcon Squadron didn't lose a single bird. When they landed, Monroe and Vega made a beeline straight for the shop. I was pretending to calibrate a fuel meter when they walked in. Vega spoke first. They backed off. "Good. No casualties." "Better." He hesitated. "You would have flown if you had to, right?" I didn't answer. Monroe tilted her head. "But you didn't. Because you believed we could handle it." I finally looked up. "No. Because I knew you could." They smiled. Then Monroe, mock serious, asked, "Permission to paint a hawk silhouette on our wings now?" I just chuckled. "Do it, and I'll fine you for unauthorized decoration." Later that night, someone added a new line to the hangar mural. Beneath the folded hawk and the call signs, they painted, "Some leaders never leave the sky. They just teach from below it." And for the first time in a very long time, I let myself smile. Life at Granite Ridge didn't return to normal. It found something better. The rookies still came through, green and loud, thinking they knew how to fly. And most still crashed in the sims before lunch. But now, when they stumbled out of cockpits or hung their heads in the debriefs, they didn't go to instructors. They came to Hangar 3. They came to me. They called it the Ghost Corner now. Someone even stenciled a tiny hawk on the tool cabinet. I never acknowledged it. Never protested, either. Monroe got her own squadron 6 months later. Vega became the youngest aerial threat tactician in the fleet. They both still dropped in after missions, brought reports, questions, stories. Not to brag. To ask for insight. They never called me captain. Just Talia. That meant more. Colonel Reyes retired quietly. Before he left, he handed me an envelope sealed with the Navy's crest. Inside was a single citation. It named me as the unofficial lead in the Bravo intercept. It commended my extraordinary initiative and skill. At the bottom, in Reyes' own handwriting, was a note. "Some shadows are cast by wings. Yours has sheltered more than you'll ever know." I folded the paper and tucked it into my logbook. Not for recognition. For memory. That same day, Merrick approached me in the maintenance bay. He looked older, his joints cracking louder, his uniform more faded. "You're not going to stay here forever, are you?" he asked. "I've stayed this long." He handed me a mug. Inside was a tiny bronze pin. A miniature hawk with wings folded. "Unofficial," he said. "Made it myself." I held it in my palm for a long time before pinning it under the name tag on my coveralls. Just above my heart. Not a rank. Not a return. Just a reminder. That night, a new recruit passed me on the runway. He glanced at the pin and did a double take. Then saluted. "Ma'am, are you the Shadehawk?" I shook my head. No, I'm the one who fixes the things that keep you flying. He looked confused, a little odd, but he understood enough to nod, respectfully, and continue on. I watched him go, and felt something inside me finally quiet. Years passed. The jets changed. The paint schemes got sleeker, the cockpits more digital, the systems more automated. But one thing didn't change: the people who flew them, and the people who kept them flying. I stayed right where I was. Not because I had nowhere else to go, but because I had finally found where I belonged. My tools, my hangar, my silence, and the quiet understanding that sometimes saving lives doesn't mean being in the air. It means being ready when no one else is. It means folding your wings, but never forgetting you have them. The mural behind Base 6 grew over time. New silhouettes added. Not just hawks, but falcons, eagles, owls, all painted by hand. Beneath each, the name of someone who had once been just ground crew, admin, or support, until the moment they weren't. And always, at the top of the wall, the original: respect the grounded. Every new class of pilots toured the hangar during orientation now. They stopped in front of that mural. Some laughed. Some didn't get it. But a few looked deeper. Those few always found their way to me. Sometimes for advice. Sometimes for tools. Sometimes just to sit in silence and understand that greatness isn't always loud. I never flew again after that night. Never rejoined a squadron. But every single aircraft that left Granite Ridge under my watch, it flew right. Because it had to. Because the sky doesn't forgive mistakes. And because someone like me, someone who once failed, knows the weight of keeping others from falling. One day, years later, I found a note tucked into my locker. No name, no signature, just a folded slip of paper with 5 words scrawled in careful handwriting. When the sky called, you answered. I pinned it to the inside of my locker, right next to the photo of Bravo Squadron. 5 pilots alive because I remembered who I was. That same day, a young tech asked me the question I hadn't heard in a long time. Why'd you stop flying? I looked out toward the horizon and said simply, because I wanted others to learn how. They nodded and understood. Sometimes, the loudest legacies are the ones whispered between takeoffs. Sometimes, the greatest leaders are the ones who step back so others can rise. And sometimes, the most powerful words are the simplest. We need you. So I stayed. So I served. So I remembered how to fly, even when I never left the ground.